Spinning wheel. All right, we got to get Facebook up and running as well before we're officially live. I know some of you guys can see us right now, all our YouTube people, Twitch people, one of our Facebook groups, but we got to get both Facebook groups up because that's what the boss man said. There's the 5 check marks. All right, guys, welcome in to another episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am your host, Nick Kendell, along with my co-host, Scott Kennedy. Scott, how are you doing on this fine Thursday morning, July 15th, 2021?
I'm doing good. I think I'm doing better than Jay, who is commenting on YouTube. And welcome, Jay. Says you pulled an all-nighter. I'm here. So I'm not sure if Jay knows what time or day it is. He does say good morning. So you're doing better than I would after an all-nighter. That's for sure. If I'm up past 11, I'm in trouble. US Dave, buenos dias. Good morning. Good to see you.
We got Dave Glassman in the house as well. Good to see you, Dave. Dropping the heart and cheers. Big E Broncos in the house. Good morning. Good morning to you, Big E. DBA, good morning. Go Broncos. And Mike Givens, of course, as well. Good morning, Nick and Scott. Sup Broncos country. And Jared's in the house. Jake Gerard. Jake Gerard, probably. Should BP be equal to a sack for Shelby Harris? A batted pass. Well,
batting practice. I'm still in baseball mode.
Yeah, for sure. Jeremy Sean also in the house. Good morning, fellas. Glad you're not late today, Jeremy. Welcome to being on time. That's what we do here. We're punctual. But let's get to Jake here real quick, and then we'll get into the matters of business, introductions, where you guys can follow us, etc. But I think the answer here is a resounding no. A batted pass is not as valuable as a sack, because a sack results like a batted pass is just an incompletion. Yes, an incompletion is great, but a sack, you're talking about a negative play where you're pushing the ball further back. Also, you're getting hits on the quarterback. Like I would say, even I'd rather get a pressure or a quarterback hit than a batted pass, even if the pressure or hit results in a completion.
I agree, because to me, a batted pass can mean you were taken out of the play. I mean, you could be stood up, and at least you got something out of it because you got your hands up, but you didn't get any pressure. You didn't get any penetration. There's different batted passes for sure. Now, if you're rushing in and he throws it into you, that's a pressure and a batted pass. So I agree with you on that, Nick.
Yep. Not that batted pass does not have value. If you are stalemated and you can get in the passing lane and you got vines like Shelby Harris does, he does it better than anybody in the game right now. I think he led the league in batted passes last year. So there is some value to that, no doubt about it. But it's, you'd rather have a guy who's getting after the quarterback more. I'd sacrifice a couple batted passes for a few more quarterback hits, quarterback hurries, and maybe even one more sack if we were getting down to it. But good question, Jake, and thank you very much. Also, thank you, before we even get into our matters of business, Andrew coming in here with the $5 super over on YouTube. Thank you very much, Andrew. Good to see you. Good morning. He says, thank you for making my 23-hour drive to Florida from Oklahoma much more entertaining. Hashtag get Rajas. Hashtag Broncos for breakfast rocks. Well, Scott, are you much of a driver? Or do you fly everywhere? Because I'm from the Midwest, and if it's 16 hours or less, it's drivable. Gosh darn it.
Ours in Atlanta with the hub here, it was there was a 4-hour window. So if it's within 4 hours, it's faster to drive. I don't mind driving my limit before I'm ready to do something else, because getting it out on the open road is nice.
Yeah.
300 miles. I'm like, I've done it where my family has flown somewhere and I've driven, and met them down there, so we'd have a car because I didn't mind the drive and some alone time. But after 300 miles, I'm like, all right, I'm ready to do something else. But I've done coast to coast and back. And I recommend it for everybody. So the 23-hour drive, I've gone from Atlanta to LA back to Atlanta, and then up to New York and back down, and then up to Ohio several times, where my extended family is. So I do like driving. I really do. But when I was in LA, you had to fly everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. No, being from Iowa, everything's drivable.
People don't realize how big this country gets once you get west of the Mississippi. It's like, 8 hours. I can be in Cincinnati, Ohio from Atlanta in 8 hours. 8 hours gets you about, it's only 8 hours of I-7, straight up I-75.
Wow.
No traffic, which is, harder and harder these days. But, 8 hours, going east might get you into another state in when you're starting out west.
Yeah, no, totally. We did the 36-hour drive from Davenport, Iowa to Seattle with a 5-month-old puppy. So that was fun. Jay coming in again. My friends wanted me to stream The Walking Dead, the game, and I have summer school, so I've been trying to balance. I don't know how much balance that is if there's not sleep there, Jay. You got to get sleep. That's important. But you always want to sacrifice. Caveat. You want to get sleep unless it's during this show. Then sacrifice.
Yeah, wake up for this, and hopefully we don't put you to sleep. So sometimes getting my mind off of stuff. If I turn on a game, even a game I like, it clears my mind completely. After 10, I'm out. It's like, I'm gonna watch soccer. I'm gonna watch baseball. I'm gonna watch football. Oh, you mean take a nap? Yeah, that's what I mean.
RG saying you guys are the best. Thank you very much, RG. Jamal Killen to the question for Scott. Good morning, fellas. Scott, are you going to the Jacksonville Broncos game? I stay in Georgia.
Probably not. My weekends, as far as game time goes, is taken up by my children. So both of them play multiple sports. So when it comes to, I don't mind going. I like going to practices, but I'll watch a lot of stuff on DVR because my kids both play multiple sports, and Saturdays and Sundays are usually taken up by kids.
I won't lie. I do miss the Midwest time zone for some of the sports because I loved coming home after the bars and watching Pac-12 After Dark at like until 3 a.m. That's not the case anymore out here because I'm in Pac-12 country. But no, I'll stay up. I mean, who doesn't want to watch Washington State versus UCLA go first one to 60-point wins?
Well, when I was out west, I always said if I ever come back east, if there's something I really want to watch, I'll probably record it and watch it at 6 a.m. Yeah. I'm not staying up past midnight to watch the end of a game. I'm lucky if I make it past 10:30. So, those 9 o'clock start times, I'm not seeing the end of that one on night. I'll know it before anybody else gets up because I'll get up and watch it on DVR.
Yeah, I was thinking of you yesterday when Chad messaged our group saying, "What's the topic tomorrow?" And I was like, "Oh, there's no way." Yeah, he's dead to the world. Jamal coming in here, not dead to the world. Good morning, fellas. Scott. Oh, yes. Okay. Peter Middleton. Hello, Nick and Scott. Enjoying a cheeky drink in Cambodia. Let us know what you're doing. And also, Peter, thank you very much. Here's some stars for the great content as always. You're the best. And he also said, he had another one here. Did a great job on Thursday by himself. And he says, Scott, you are refreshing. It's been refreshing to have you on Broncos for Breakfast, which I agree. It's been a lot of fun so far. Hopefully the season is beneficial to all of us as well, the Broncos being good. But we'll see. We got Mr. Sir McLovin in the house saying, good morning, Broncos fellows. We got Dale in the house. Morning, guys. Ken Booker. I drove to North Carolina to Denver. That's a long drive. Mo Ron. Morning, Nick and Scott. Great to see you. Great to see you. Swink McLeod. I've been driving between Los Angeles and Colorado. I'm back 25 times. Still like it better than flying. Well, there you go. Chase, our meme master. I just drove to a jam band festival from Montana to Pennsylvania last week. 30 hours. Chase, that's some commitment there. What are you, a deadhead or something? Following them around? That's pretty hardcore. And then we got our Star Master coming in here. The most entertaining crew on MHH. Man, Gary, thank you so much. That's so nice. And thank you for the stars. Peter also saying nice stars. You're also right. They're so entertaining. Well, that's good because we do try to be entertaining, but above everything else, we try to give you guys good information and be right? Like if we can be entertaining during that, that's nirvana. But we want to make sure you guys are getting good information. So let's get to this real quick. Chad put up the Huddle Up background here, so I'm not going to flash the screen with Broncos for Breakfast, but you guys can follow Scott and myself on Twitter, Scott at Scout Kennedy, and myself at Nick Kendell MHH. While you're over there, follow us at Huddle Up Pod, at Broncos for Breakfast. Is it BFB for Breakfast? Chad put up the wrong one. I don't have the Twitter handles memorized myself, but we'll figure it out. Follow
on one of us, you'll find us. You won't miss much.
Exactly.
Especially him. The hard part with Nick is making sure you filter it out. With me, that I've got a few Twitter handles, so you follow this one, you won't miss a Broncos for Breakfast.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. Not verified. I'm not that cool, but that's okay. Thank you also for everybody joining us on Facebook today. We got only 6 reactions so far. Zebulon dropping the wow, or Kevin, as Scott likes to call him. We also got the heart reacts coming in here. Early artists, Jacob, Ken, Gary Leeds Palmer, and a like from Jamal Killing. So if you guys can do that, that'd be a lot of help. Give us a like, give us a care react, a wow react, a heart react. Love them all. While you're over there, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. Follow us there, join the groups, join the conversation. It's a lot of fun. Our number one audience is on YouTube. And if you guys are joining us on YouTube today, thank you. And while
Number
you're
one
there,
in numbers, not in our hearts.
yeah, everybody's the same. It's like I love all my children, but YouTube.
but you're my favorite.
No, I love you all. But if you guys are joining us on YouTube today, subscribe, like, and share. That can help us a heck of a lot. I know not everybody's in a position to give stars or be a super chat person, like Andrew Morrow and Peter Middleton and Gary Leeds Palmer have been so far. That's fine. But you can like subscribing to this show. It's completely free. Helps us a heck of a lot. And also, guys, while you're over on YouTube, follow Scott's channel. Scott, the season is right around the corner. And Scott's going to have a lot of great football content for everybody here, not just Broncos, but a much more bigger scope. But of course, if the people ask for the Broncos, Scott will oblige. So youtube.com/C/Scott Kennedy. And I will also drop the auto sub link in the chat right now. So that way you guys don't even have to do anything. Just click it. Just go. What are you doing? What are you doing with the rest of your day? You going to go up and get another cup of coffee? Might as well click the link at the same time also. Michael coming in. Good morning, Nick and Scott from Broncos for Breakfast. And we got the $25 super coming in from Kyle. Kyle, it's been a second. Hope you're doing well. Good morning, guys. Haven't made a live show in live one in a while. That's exactly right. Work schedule got changed. Go Broncos. Well, Kyle, we're happy to have you in the here and now, and really appreciate the very generous super there off the gate. If you have any questions for us, please make sure you ask. We'll get to it, but very, very helpful. Also, we got Michael Ronquillo coming in here with the superstars, I believe there. Peter Middleton will let me know one way or another. So there we go. Peter saying, as far as Scott's page, subscription is definitely the way to go. This show and the subscriber shows are worth far more. See, Peter, you say that, but I'm in other shows, so I don't know what you're saying here. Like, no, I just want to give you a hard time. But yeah. Thank you very much for the comments, Peter. We appreciate it also. Just everybody, man. We're getting, I know it's the dead season right now, but really getting people in here and talking to us and everything and taking the time. It means a heck of a lot. So, Scott, today last Tuesday, we had a lot of comments about, what about the interior defensive line, blah, 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 while we were talking about the edge rushing position. And you guys wanted it. We're going to talk about it today. So the Broncos interior defensive line, off of first viewing, Scott, what do you think?
Well, I think there's right to be some questions there. You know, when we start looking at secondary sorted linebackers, if it's not the best group, it's pretty close with the secondary. Move up to the front three. Now I think there starts becoming a lot more questions. And if we're going to start in the interior, we can start dead in the middle. Mike Purcell, 6'3", pushing 330 pounds, a little bit of a journeyman before he comes in. How locked in is he there at that position? Is he somebody you can count on to do a job? Because when you're 3-4, it's maybe the most unglamorous position in all of football, outside of the special teams, as a 3-4 nose guard, 3-4 nose tackle right there, because his job is just to hold blockers. That's it. It's not to get penetration. If you can, great. That's just a bonus. It's not even to make tackles. It's to just plug up holes and occupy space. So, you're never going to have the stats there for him. But how good is he? You tell me. Are you secure with Mike Purcell and McTelvin Ahim right there as your two guys on the interior line?
Yeah, I like Mike Purcell. I am definitely in the camp of, unless you have a unicorn, it's probably a position that you should do exactly what the Broncos did. You find a journeyman, you find a plug, and you play them for 2-3 years, and then you move on. A lot of these guys with these bigger body types, they do tend to fall off pretty quickly. That's just too much weight for many bodies to handle. I mean, we kind of saw that with Terrence Knighton, pot roast, while the Broncos were playing more of a 4-3 then. Kind of just fell off. But Mike Purcell, the biggest concern for me is the injury he's coming off of. I know that he's been detailing it and coming back, but that Liz Frank injury is serious. The Bronco fans will remember that's what Ryan Clady suffered in I think it would have been 2014. Maybe it was 2013, but he was never the same after that. Like, Ryan Clady was one of the top 3 offensive tackles in football, suffered that Liz Frank injury, out of the league a few years later. It's a band on your foot. Okay. So it's snapped. So I'll pull up a picture for
it's one of those things. What is it? Plantar fasciitis, or however you say it. It just doesn't sound like much. It's like, yeah, my arch hurts, but it's debilitating. I mean, it will end your season, and it's reoccurring. It's almost as bad as pulling a hamstring.
Yeah, it's a ligament on your foot. It looks like it connects your what should be like your index toe, the one next to the big one, on the inside of that. So I'll pull up a picture here real quick. We're gonna get really medical, I guess today. So for science, right? That's what we're doing it for. But yeah, he suffered a Liz Frank injury. He's been detailing it and getting healthier, but you can see it right there, and that ligament snapped, and that can zap a lot of players. It can ruin some mobility. So that is concerning for him long term. I thought that before that injury, considering he was a journeyman, had played for Vic Fangio before, I think way back in San Francisco during those days, early in his career. He's also a local kid, which is pretty cool. I think he played at Wyoming and is from Colorado. Somebody can correct me there if I'm wrong, but he's talented for what he is. I don't know if he's actually super duper valuable, considering how you can find those guys. But he is valuable in a sense that without him, and we saw it last year when he went down, the run defense, the integrity of that defensive line to hold up in the run game dropped pretty dramatically. So he's one that if you don't have him, it hurts. But he is somewhat of a replaceable talent in a grand scheme of things, just maybe not in the short term.
Well, and I think the good news is if he comes back, is that's definitely not a mobility position. I mean, don't get me wrong. You have to have plus mobility to play in the NFL, period. Okay. Yeah. So, but as far as if you're a 4-3 defensive tackle, that is almost the same. That's why we're talking about interior line across all three positions.
Yeah.
A similar body type and skill set as a 3-4 end. So we've talked about it before. Old man strength. That's a strength position. Yeah. So he's not necessarily, if that injury happens to a quick twitch guy like a corner or running back, it scares me more than happened to an interior lineman who should theoretically get better with age as he gets stronger. Not, 40, but, as he's approaching 30, 32, 33 years old, should be as effective as he's been in his career, which bodes well for Mike Purcell, assuming he can play pain-free.
Yeah, and the other thing about Mike Purcell is how often is he actually going to be on the field? What's his rotation look like? Because the Broncos are a team that their base is 3-4, but how often are you going to actually be in 3-4? Especially with the Broncos' investment in the cornerback position. They're talking about playing 4 cornerbacks on the field at a time. And obviously there'll be times when they take off linebackers in favor of a secondary player, but Purcell's going to be one of the first guys off the field as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think base 3-4 sounds right, though, as you go to a nickel pack. Even if you go to a nickel with 4 defensive linemen, you're more likely to have one of those outside linebackers step up to be the 4th defensive end, right? We
for
think
sure.
So, in pass rushing situations, that's not the guy you necessarily want. But based on this, if it's me, based on this roster, if I'm moving to a 4, it's one of those edge rushers. It's one of those outside linebackers stepping up to be a defensive end.
Yeah, in my opinion, Shelby Harris goes to the 1 technique, Draymond Jones goes to the 3 technique, and then you got your 2 edge rushers and Chubb and Vaughn, and let's go make magic. But Purcell still valuable, especially with the Broncos secondary. If the Broncos can play with any sort of offensive potency this year and play with a lead, you'll see Purcell off the field more and more. But if teams are trying to, take the air out of the football, so to speak, Purcell's going to have to hang in there. And I think George Payton, man, you got me all messed up now, Scott. I was like, oh my God, is it Patton?
I'm sorry.
It's okay. George Payton, he saw last year with the Vikings that if you lose depth in the second or in the defensive line, maybe it's not the most valuable position on your defense, but it's really very much a have or have not position, because if you're getting beat up front, everything falls. It's a house of cards.
And it's one of those positions where you don't undervalue, you kind of undervalue it, and it's like, oh, what are you going to do if you don't have that guy? It's like, it's not the point that he's not important. It's just that they're replaceable. That's a fairly easy position to try and fill theoretically is a defensive, but you hear that all the time when we start talking about positional values. It's like, well, we're not talking about playing with 10, taking somebody off the field. We're just saying that he might be a little easier to replace than a cornerback or an offensive tackle, so to speak. We talk about that with running backs all the time. They're, of course, they're important. They're just replaceable.
And Jay's asking us, what's a 1 versus a 3 technique? I pulled up a defensive technique alignments there for you. So the 1 is kind of a shaded nose tackle. Sometimes you'd see him play like a 2-eye in that 4-3 front. 3 technique lined up over the guard. And a lot of times for a classic 4-3 defense, you'll see the defensive end lined up way outside shoulder. Not way outside. That'd be a 9 technique. That's why it's called a wide 9 front. But your defensive end lining up at a 7 technique there. So hopefully that answered it a little bit. I know it's really simplifying it, but it's kind of fun to talk about.
Hold that up again. Let's we'll talk about it a little bit more.
Okay, 1 second because I just closed it.
about some of the differences. Oh, the where they line up typically depends on what formation you're running. If you're running a 3-4. That nose guard / tackle is going to be one of the 0 or the 1s. They're head up over the center. Whereas if you're playing a 4-3 and a defensive tackle, they're usually that 2-eye or straight up 2s where they're trying to push the gaps. And then the ends, depending on situations, if you're a super fast guy, you got a linebacker coming up. He may be in that 9. On the other side, outside, he may be starting so far out wide that tackle's going, good Lord, he's going to have a full head of steam by the time he gets there. So when you're the 3-4 that the Denver Broncos play as a base, you're going to see Purcell in that 0 or 1 spot a lot, and they might shift. They might go head up. But you'll see a shift here and there. But they don't typically want to give too much away because there's only three on the line.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And if you can find guys who can play a lot of techniques effectively, those are the special ones. I mean, J.J. Watt plays 9, 6, 7, 5, 4, 4-eye, 3, sometimes 2. Calais Campbell is another one as well.
You get a guy 6'5", 300 pounds that runs like that, you can put him anywhere. I mean, you can put him anywhere across the line, and he's going to be effective. They're not easy to find.
Yep. Exactly. We got a question here from Peter, and let's get to it. Since he showed us the love, let's show him some love. Who is the returner if the Broncos get rid of Deontay Spencer? So going for special teams here from the defensive line. I think you'd have KJ Hamler as the punt returner, and then you'd have Tyree Cleveland as the kick returner. That's how I have it in my head if you move on from Deontay Spencer.
Does it make sense to drop one of the running backs back there? Not Gordon, but if you want to get some early touches for Javonte Williams, maybe. I don't know, but it's a thought. He can catch the ball. Special teams is usually a good way to start getting guys' feet wet as they're coming into a team, get them used to the big stage. So maybe that's just a thought. Might be crazy, but might not be.
Yeah, I mean, it's only crazy until it works. Clayton Huron coming in here.
There's not many running backs back there at punt return for sure. It's almost always a defensive back or a wide receiver, but just something that might make sense to me.
Did you see, I don't know how much college football you watch, but Alabama has a tight end that they've been using as a kick returner?
I didn't. I don't remember seeing that. If anybody could have done it, who's the best receiving tight end I ever saw coming out of high school was O.J. Howard. And for one reason or another, it just hasn't hit for him. Part of the reason was at Alabama, he's one of 5 receivers. And I don't know if it's but he was the best receiving tight end I ever scouted. So I could picture someone like him, doing that, or, Kyle Pitts. Could you picture Kyle Pitts returning kicks? Yeah, probably.
That would be great. I want to see
stand on the goal line, because so many of them go into the end zone now. He's standing on the goal line and catch them at 7-8 feet in the air, so he can get a return.
There you go. Man, that would be a lot of fun. Evan Ingram could do it as well, a little smaller, shiftier. So you have wide receivers who are faster.
Another Georgia kid.
Yeah, all that talent down there in the South. Clayton coming in saying, smash the like button, guys. And what kind of coffee are you drinking? I am, I don't know if I'm ashamed to say, but there's a local coffee roaster back in Iowa that we actually get coffee from them shipped out here because we like to support local business out there. It's actually
and I heard about the guys in Iowa who are importing their corn from Seattle, so that's fair.
That's exactly why it's so funny. So we actually get coffee roasted from sometimes. We also get some from here in Seattle, but there's a local coffee roaster that we really wanted to keep up and running with everything going on in the world. So we were trying to support them because they do a lot of good work in the community as well. So yeah, I even have this is just for beer, but it says drink local. So support local businesses, guys, if you can.
I order mine from Cafe Brit. They're Costa Rican, and I went to Costa Rica 10, 12 years ago and had some there, and I've been supporting them ever since. And now that they raise their prices online, and I was like, I don't want to buy it through Amazon. But now they give enough specials at Cafe Brit. If you sign up for the newsletter, that I drink Cafe Brit. I already had mine early this morning because with no air conditioning in my basement, I was drinking coffee during the show the other day and I was breaking out in a sweat. So I got to get my air fixed. Now it's just a little water.
Man, that's crazy. I went to Cafe Brit as well. I went to Costa Rica 4 years ago, like today. I was actually having the Snapchat memories come up, and went to Cafe Brit as well. My favorite part of Costa Rica was probably we spent 3 days in Arenal in the hot springs in the jungle there. Oh,
yep,
very fun.
We did too. My favorite was that I scuba dive though, so the big marine life in the off the shores that's still my favorite part of any trip. Anyway,
Pacific side
for the coffee talk.
Pacific
coffee
or
talk. Let's
Caribbean?
talk.
I gotta know though. Pacific or Caribbean?
Probably I've done much more in the Caribbean.
Okay.
But the Maldives blows everything away. So that's Indian.
For sure.
The Maldive Islands blew everything away, without a doubt. It's like, what's your number one trip? It's Maldives, and then there's a bunch that are close.
Well, there you go. That's awesome. Sean coming in here saying, I'm hoping and betting Alexander transcends to a new level this year. We'll get to linebackers probably next week. I think this is going to be a good format here for us to get us through some of the multiple shows and dead time. So we'll get to linebackers next week. I think Alexander maybe is what he is, but that's fine. You don't have to have a total transcendent talent there. As long as he's not out there making mistakes, it's fine. Football lives and does in the trenches. There you go, Matt. Good comment. Yeah, lives and dies. Autocorrect. Well, you're correct. Mo Ron coming in here. Why does it seem to me the only place on D with adequate depth is cornerback? I think it's a relativity thing here because cornerback has so much unbelievable depth that there's no team in the league that probably can compare, maybe outside of Baltimore. So it makes the rest of the Broncos roster look somewhat thin. But, I mean, you have Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, and Malik Reed for this season. That's pretty darn good compared to most teams.
Well, and I have a comment on that, Nick. Who has depth? You know, the NFL is set up to make it so that you can't keep your players. You know, they make it so that you have to draft. They handicap it. It's a very Marxist system that are in the franchise model of American sports that I think is anti-American, but they do their best to make everybody equal. So who has adequate depth at different positions? There's not a ton across the board.
Nope.
You know, the highest, the starters get paid a lot more, and then you're filling in guys as backups. It's just how it is.
Yep, that's a salary cap league.
And if you have depth, you're not going to keep it because the guy that's in backup, he's going to leave as a free agent because that's just how it is.
Yeah, Bronco fans should know about that with Shaquille Barrett moving on from the Broncos. Never really got a chance to start there. And Broncos didn't, because of that, also, they didn't exactly know what they had in him. They knew he was talented, but he went to Tampa Bay, get a full-time gig, and blossomed into one of the better stories and edge rushers in football. So, I've been in a conversation. I think it was, Matt Staffario in here. If I pronounce your name wrong, get at me. But on Facebook, we were going back and forth talking about the Bradley Chubb pick because it just transcended from our conversation on Tuesday. And he said that he would have gone in many different directions than Bradley Chubb. Didn't like the pick of the time, et cetera, et cetera. And the only one that I can think of at 5 overall that would have been better in hindsight, given who was available, was Josh Allen. Now, if I could have the wizard hat on and do everything different, I'd have traded back twice, nabbed Jair Alexander, nabbed Lamar Jackson, and now we're really cooking. But Bradley Chubb, as far as what he's done for the 5th overall, he's not Chase Young. He's not Myles Garrett. He's a damn good edge rusher, though, and one of the better under 25-year-old edge rushers in the league. So let's get to this real quick. Josiah Hicks. Hey, Nick, it's your favorite Mississippian. Good to see you, Josiah. Hope you're doing well. Looks like a fun wedding picture on there. Congratulations. Brian Greenfield with a $5 super over on YouTube. Thank you very much, Brian. Good to see you. Max Power coming in here with $2 or £2 sign. Sosa Hajim will get 6 sacks this year. Hashtag bookmark me. All right, Maxwell. I don't think we can bookmark comments, but we're going to hold you to that. That would be absolutely fantastic. Let's get to it here real quick about the rest of the defensive line because we're already half an hour in and we talked Mike Purcell, and that's it. Shelby Harris. He's somebody that the Broncos last year, they played hardball with him, and he is market a lot of people were pointing him to the Indianapolis Colts. This is 2 years ago. And the Colts go out there and trade for DeForest Buckner, probably one of the top 3 to 5 defensive linemen in football right now, interior defensive linemen. And Shelby Harris's market goes cold. So Broncos bring him back on a 1-year deal, very cheap. And this year he plays even better, has a great season, and is back to the Broncos now on a 3-year deal, which is essentially a 2-year deal. If he plays great, then they'll keep him, but it's essentially a 2-year deal. The way I remember it, that's kind of how all contracts are these days, right? That last year is the way they set it up. Not a lot of guarantees.
All you got to do is look at the dead cap number on, and you'll know when that contract ends.
Yep.
Flat out. When's the dead cap go from 100% of the value to about 25% of the value? That's the end of his contract right there.
Yep. Yes, it is. It's weird how football does that, but it's also interesting as well. Makes for a lot of fun math. But yeah, Shelby Harris, he was really good last year. He's one of the more dynamic personalities in the locker room as well, which makes him a fan favorite. I thought that entering 2 seasons ago, when a lot of Broncos fans, you got to bring him back, I thought he was a little bit overrated. But this year he took steps forward. He played his best year of his career, in my opinion. I'm really excited to see what he can do with Von Miller and Bradley Chubb on the field. Is he ever going to be a top 10 interior defensive lineman? Probably not, but he's really good and he's easily starting quality. So I'm excited to see him this year.
He doesn't have to be. That was a thing, and Nick will appreciate this as an Iowa fan. We're saying it's like, well, this team has all these 5-star guys or all these first-round picks. In football, you only need 2 or 3 difference makers, period. And then you need a bunch of guys that can do their jobs, that program guys, that are franchise guys, that are professionals, that can do their jobs. And then you've got a few stars that make the difference. So he doesn't have to be a top 10 guy. If you've got the front 3 doing their jobs and Von Miller and Bradley Chubb do their thing, you're fine. The front 7 is taken care of. It's plus.
Yeah, nope, exactly. So we got the $9 million a year contract here. We have some people saying $9 million isn't steep for Shelby at all. Here is Mo Ron saying Harris is a great teammate, but $9 million a year seems steep for him. I would say 9 is pretty fair. Like Chase is saying here, that's about what I expected for his market and starting caliber defensive lineman. Maybe
So what's 10, what's the salary cap? Let's just round up and say it's about 200 million, right? It's like 180 and change, 200 million. So if you round up and say 10, that's 1/20th. A starting 22 is your starting defensive end, a premium position, 1/20th of your total salary. Yeah, that sounds about right to me.
Yeah, we got Josiah saying Shelby's a difference maker. So I think about $9 million is correct. 2 years. They're also paying him for what he's done. Also, he's really taken to Bill Kollar as well for the Broncos, who's really, whipped his butt and get him into place. So that's good. Max with a good comment here. Jordan Phillips is getting $10 million a year for one flash season. One flash season he had 2 years ago. Shelby's a much better player. Jordan Phillips does have I believe he was a very early 2nd round pick, which helps a lot as well. But that's fine. And yeah, we got Mo Ron saying Carl Nassib got 8.5. So that's the Raiders.
There's bad contracts everywhere. Go look at what Dante Fowler got paid last year. It was I think 15 million, and I think he had a sack maybe. But going through this, Nick, we started off just doing my homework a little bit. Mike Purcell, season-ending injury. Shelby Harris, injury. But they felt good enough to sign into another contract. So you figure that one's about done. But I can see why there was concern. Let's talk about the line. I can see why there was concern, because if there is a spot that isn't – if you're going by unit, there's a drop-off from linebacker and secondary to the defensive line. Would you agree?
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. Yeah, for sure. We got Glenn coming in here. Ooh, this is an interesting one. Do you think that Chubb would be a part of any potential Rodgers trade? If I was the Packers, he'd be the guy that I'd ask for the most. I'd say I need Bradley Chubb and one of Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and Noah Fant, plus a 1st round pick. If I was the one approaching the Broncos, which that would hurt, but you're also trading MVP quarterback, so it's probably going to hurt.
We can get into that one in more depth later.
For sure.
That'd be tough for me. I wouldn't want to give up 2 key pieces of my team to add another key piece. It's not a net negative, but it's not the positive leap forward that you would hope for.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Those are you're asking for 2 of the most important building blocks on your team. But it's probably going to hurt either way if you bring in a
they're
young
blocks.
building blocks, rookie contract.
They're not just talented; they're young.
Yep, absolutely. How many sacks will Chubb and Miller get? Hopefully double digits each. I'm going to put it, just because injuries can happen, I think probably one of them gets about 8.5 and another one gets 11. That's on the low end. But if the offense is not struggling and not turning the ball over, like, giving away candy at Halloween, then you'll hopefully get a little higher number there. So Shelby Harris, do you have any thoughts on Shelby Harris? I think he was a 5th round pick or 6th round pick. Maybe no, he's a 7th round pick.
7th round pick of the Raiders. Yep.
Yes.
And 49 tackles, 6 sacks, and then he was off to he was one of those advanced statistic guys last year before he got hurt. It was like, okay, 32 tackles, 2.5 sacks, but he's leading the team in like pressures, or leading the league in pressures and that type of stuff for a 3-4 lineman. So yeah, doing one of those guys that the numbers aren't, the raw numbers aren't going to do him justice. So he was doing damage. And again, you see that season-ending injury, but then they re-sign him. The Broncos say, we're good. We've had the medical staff take a look at him. We're good with his injury. So I don't think there's as much concern there as with someone like Mike Purcell, because you've had a full look at him. You feel good about it. This isn't a recurring thing. It's fully healed. Now there's just risk of injury that happens with every player, every down, every NFL. No more or less with Shelby Harris, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. No, that's very true. I'm excited to see Shelby this year. He's the known quantity for that defensive line. If he goes down, I'm concerned, but he has been pretty healthy so far in his career. Glenn asking, would you let Shelby Harris date your sister? I don't know Shelby. He seems fun. So yes, although my sister is engaged, so maybe not. And he also says he's married, so no.
What's
so
that to do with it?
Yeah, that's true. I think he's a proud father as well. So congratulations to Shelby Harris. Let's keep it going here on the defensive line. And the next guy, and somebody that you've mentioned a few times on here as well that you're excited about, is Draymond Jones. Mm-hmm. He's entering his 3rd year in the NFL. Former Ohio State defensive lineman, 3rd round draft pick in that very talented draft class for the Broncos just a few years ago. And his rookie season, I think he had 6.5 sacks, 8.5 sacks, 6.5 sacks, I believe, off the top of my head.
I had it up here. Let me see if I can find him. I don't think he had that many his rookie season.
Maybe it was last year then. I thought he had.
Last year he finished with 6.5, but it was 3.5 over the final 4 games.
Yes, because he was injured.
He missed 3 games where they put him on the IR, which is strange because it was more like a disabled list. I don't think you're allowed to even call it disabled list anymore. But then he finished strong. But you look at it and it's like, you tell me, the numbers were good, but it was like, if he wasn't getting a sack, kind of the old Buddy Ryan line about, not Buddy Ryan. You'll have to remind who coached the Eagles and said about Chris Carter. Might have been Buddy Ryan. All he does is catch touchdown passes. All he does is sack the quarterback. So you'd have 1 tackle, 1 sack. So how did he do? Was he a guy that showed up, was doing his job? Because you watched him for the whole season, or is he one guy that would disappear for all the game and then get a sack and all of a sudden his numbers look good? The Mark Gastineau type. Mark Gastineau would disappear if you may not even remember him. Mark Gastineau would make 1 play. He invented he was one of the first sack dance guys for the New York Jets. And he'd disappear for 3.5 quarters, make 1 sack and go crazy. So tell me.
Draymond Jones, I wouldn't say has been super consistent so far in his career. As far as like game-to-game impact, getting pressures like crazy, winning like crazy. So the fact that he is finishing and getting sacks, there is value to that, but I would say that he's not yet a consistent disruptor. He can be. He's dealt with injuries that have kind of marred his progress both the last 2 seasons, and that's worth noting as well. But he is getting after the quarterback at a decent rate. I am curious. He doesn't face many doubles, and I think that's partially playing the 3 technique. It's partially playing with Chubb and or Von Miller there. But
now he's play with both.
Yes, exactly.
So if he can win those, that stat you brought up that you put up on Tuesday, if his pass rush percentage of wins can increase, he shouldn't see many more double teams. And if he does, Von Miller and Bradley Chubb are going to eat.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think there's one for the defensive line as well. And Draymond Jones was not as high in the right corner as you'd hope because he didn't face that many double teams and his win rate wasn't as high. So he needs to get more consistent there in winning. He needs to continue to fill out his frame. I think it was at Ohio State because he wore that number 85. Just didn't look right. I was like, man, that's a skinny guy. He's not really skinny. He's just wearing 85 as a defensive lineman. But I'm expecting a big year from him this season. The Broncos still have 2 years of control left of Draymond Jones as well. So also year 3 of a defensive lineman. That's typically when you really see what that guy's made of. And hopefully can figure out what they're going to be for their career. Because sometimes it takes time for the body types to develop. The league is totally different. Even playing for Ohio State in a program like that with their phenomenal defensive line coach. But I think he's going to have a good year this year. And I want to put it to you. Who's going to be the more impactful defensive lineman for the Broncos this year if you had to bet? Draymond Jones, who's an ascending player, or Shelby Harris, who's definitely the known quantity? I think they're both very talented, both average to better starters for the defensive line.
I like that ascending quality. I mean, Shelby had a great year last year, and it didn't necessarily show the numbers. So talking about, you get the feeling just based on raw data. Shelby's the one that saw the double teams last year, and was still making plays. But if Von Miller and Bradley Chubb are healthy, these two guys, Harris and Jones, should both have really good seasons. And again, if they don't get the numbers, it means they're being double teamed. Hopefully, if they're being double teamed, someone else is going to have big numbers. So again, we talk about synergy a lot and how everything's connected, how one thing affects the other. And these guys on the edges should just feed off one another, and they should help them. Each one of them. If it's not one guy, you talk about how do you stop this guy? Because you can't just stop one guy on this defense. There just should be 4 of them that can get after the quarterback, and that's going to be fun.
Yeah, and US Dave saying Shelby makes things happen, and Peter saying Shelby's one of my favorites. So I have a hard time with this one. I'd probably go with Draymond Jones as well, just because he's cheaper, he's younger, and I agree with you about the ascending guy. You want to get a guy that's going on with their career, getting out there rather than plateau.
There's some Gastineau comments coming in here, and I just remember Gastineau put up big numbers, and he invented the sack dance. One time he was dancing after he forced a fumble, and he ended up kicking the ball, so he got in trouble for that. He did a freak out dance. He didn't do anything choreographed. I just remember one of the offensive tackles that went against him. He's like, he just wasn't a big fan of Gastineau. I said, you kick his ass for 80 plays, he gets 1 sack, and act like he just won the Super Bowl. So that was one of my bigger memories of Mark Gastineau. He's an 80s guy too, Nick. So, I remember more guys from the 80s than I do from the 2000s. Formative years.
Man, that's I feel that way about probably early 2000s football, because how much Madden I played. I would literally just go through the rosters like crazy. Oh, where'd they go? What draft pick? Blah, blah, blah. I do redrafts all the time. It was a lot of fun.
That's how I learned hockey. I told you, I do not say this lightly. I was the greatest NHL 95 EA Sports hockey player around. If they had e-games then, I would have made it. I would have been a made man.
Man, frozen stickball is what we call it up here. There's a lot of people excited about the Kraken up here in the Pacific Northwest. See a lot of that gear. So maybe I'll have to get out to a game. I want the Sonics to come back. That's what we need. I'm about that life. A lot of people, I'd buy one of their jerseys. I'm not really a big basketball guy, but if the Sonics were here, probably enjoy them. Peter Middleton saying that he's going with Jones for potential, Shelby for his persona, and his betting. We should merge them into one superstar. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Or for his batting, not betting. There we go. But that would be great. That would be fun. We got Gauntlets thrown. I think I could take you in NHL 95, Scott.
I was this was a different life for me. I mean, it was a long time ago. I was football Saturday at Auburn. I'm sitting on the floor playing hockey, drinking beer at 10 in the morning. And one of my fraternity's little brother, one of his little brothers showed up. He walks in and he goes, what do you play? I was like, hockey. He's like, oh, I'll kill you. I'm like, all right, have a seat, kid. It was like 15-0. He's like, well, you're good at this. I'm like, I'm sitting in, on the floor of a fraternity dorm room, drinking beer at 10 a.m. playing hockey. This is what I do.
This is my life.
Like, you're not gonna beat me.
Yeah. That's Corey Johnson. Did you play the version of Madden where you can write your own plays? Yes, I did. Good times. I messed with those a bit. I wasn't the best Madden player ever, though. I was solid. Like, I would kill the computer. I beat one of my, speaking of fraternity, I beat one of my fraternity brothers. It was 100-0 at halftime, and I was just running the football with Tebow. That's literally all I was doing, to T-Bone Willis McGahee. But that was a different time. I have not played a video game in probably years now. Like COVID hit, and I'm just like, you know what? I need to get outside more, and that's life.
Getting back on topic, let me take us back here.
Sure.
I want you to tell me a little bit about Deshaun Williams, because on paper his story is just awesome. I love the guys that have scrapped and fought and clawed. Practice squad, CFL. You look at his wiki page and it says 2016, 2020. I'm like, well, what happened to him in between here? So, what have you seen with him? Because I love stories like that, and I just think we talk about guys that'll do a job, guys that you can count on when it's fourth quarter and tired. A guy like Deshaun Williams is never going to quit, not ever.
No.
And if he's on your team, he's making everybody better. He's like a Rudy type. He's pushing everybody else to get better, because he's seen the other side of things, and he's never going to quit.
Yeah, Deshaun Williams, he's actually been you see him flash at number 90 for the Broncos. He's been around the league for a good bit here, waived off different teams: Cincinnati, Denver, Miami, Indy, Denver again. So yeah, he's bounced around, kind of like Shelby Harris early on as well. I thought that he flashed a good bit out there when he was actually playing for the Broncos. He's not the twitchiest guy ever. He's not the biggest guy ever. And would I feel comfortable if he was a starter for the Broncos at under 6 foot and like 290 pounds? Mm-hmm. No, probably not. You don't want him out there. But if he can be your fourth or fifth defensive lineman, you can find a rotation for him, and he's going to give you some quality snaps. But I think this is where people are talking about the depth kind of scaring them for the interior defensive line. If you lose Shelby Harris or Draymond Jones, it's probably Deshaun Williams who's the first guy up, unless McTelvin Najim takes some steps forward, which he might year two. But that does kind of concern me. He's definitely a rotational player. There is some value there, but I do not see him as somebody who you can come in and I would feel any bit comfortable with starting over years and years, or weeks and weeks.
Yeah, no, I just love the story on there. And again, it's not a guy you want on the starter, but you want on the team. You want him as part of the team, because again, he's got better perspective than a lot of these other guys who have been at the top and will work harder. Who's going to outwork Deshaun Williams on that team? Anybody?
There's probably somebody out there that's working as hard, but on the defensive line, I mean, he's definitely a scrapper. He hasn't been given every single gift, but he's still out there fighting to hang on and make that money and be. I
just think it's good to have at least one of those guys around. Just to remind everybody what it can be like. It's like, dude, you were playing with the Calgary Stampede. I didn't even know they had football. Where's Canada? So I think that's a really good story. And we mentioned McTelvin Najim, 6'3", a third-round pick. Didn't see a ton of him last year, I would think, based on his numbers. So, what are the expectations for him in year two?
He needs to get out there and show that he can hang with the defensive line. He's somebody who Arkansas played a weird defense. They played more of like a 3-3-5. So he was an end, but essentially it was like a defense, like they played 3 defensive tackles, right? Mm-hmm. So because of that and where he played, I thought that he had pretty poor pad level because he was going up against tackles a lot of time and then moving to the interior. Mm-hmm. You didn't see that functional strength transfer over. And because of that, he was getting washed out too often. And also because he was playing high center of gravity, he ended up on the ground more often than you'd want. He's pretty nimble on his feet when he's not touched, like the agility. You'll see him actually at Arkansas rock a spin move, which for a 300+ pound guy is pretty darn fun, and not lose his balance at all. He's still getting after the quarterback. But big thing for me with Ajim is pretty classic for a defensive lineman, especially a day 2 one. He needs to add functional strength so he can anchor at the point of attack and not get washed out and be a sieve, so to speak, in run defense. And he needs to play with better pad level. Because I just felt like too often, instead of attacking forward, bursting forward, he would stand up. Like there's not enough momentum forward. It would be up, and then your pad level is messed up, and you're done.
Isn't that one of the greatest contradictions in scouting, that football coaches will say low man wins, but then they won't draft a short defensive lineman or offensive tackle or offensive. They won't draft a short lineman. Yeah. Say, oh, he's 6 feet, it's too short. Like, but you're sitting here saying that low man wins, but you don't want the guy that's lower. It's crazy. Well, that's how a guy like Grady Jarrett can fall to the 5th round and make a Pro Bowl. Out of Clemson, 6 feet tall, fell to the 5th round. Oops. So I actually think the NFL is better about drafting 6-foot linemen than college is about recruiting them. If you look at the big 5 colleges, they don't ever recruit guys that are 6 feet tall on the interior line ever, but they're chock full of them in the NFL.
Yep. No, absolutely. So that's the big one for me with the Najim. Just needs to add functional strength. Needed another year in the league. Also needed a year or two. It's a classic case for many college football programs is they ask these college players to do too much instead of perfecting one craft because they're not really thinking about developing these guys for the NFL. They are, but like it's more important for them to try to win games and get their guys out.
$4 or $5 million on the line as your head coach, and $200,000 to $500,000 for the assistants. They don't care about anything but winning games. Certainly not them going to school and getting a degree and becoming better people. They don't give a crap about any of that stuff.
You bite your tongue. Kirk Ferentz cares about every single one of those Hawkeyes out there. At least he definitely gives off that persona. I'm like I said, I'm biased for the Hawks. I always will be. But I
meant big time football. No. Sorry.
Okay, now it's personal. But oh man, Kirk Ferentz, love you, Kirk. But Najim is a guy that needs to step forward this year, right? And if he doesn't, this Broncos team is one that is primed to use an early investment on the defensive line next season because it is a developmental position. And then when you're talking about, let's say they'd use a first-round pick or a second-round pick on a interior defensive lineman next year, you're not expecting them to be a starter year one, but more so they're going to be rotational that first year and then be able to take over for a Draymond Jones or a Shelby Harris 1 year later. That's kind of the path for those trench players, especially even first-round picks. I mean, we're seeing it right now with Ed Oliver with the Bills. I mean, he's an absolute freak. A little bit, you're talking about a smaller guy. He is definitely smaller, but he moves like a linebacker for his size, and he's raw. They played him at like 0 technique, 1 technique, and just asked him to fire off the ball at Houston. Not developed at all for the NFL.
Yeah, he could do whatever. He could just over athlete guys at Houston. He wasn't asked to, and that's part of the development is when we talk about level of competition. I don't think in the long haul it matters, but usually the guys that have played a higher level of competition are ready to compete earlier. That's really the only difference. Over the long haul, it's not a big deal, but hopefully that's where McTelvin ends up is, he needed a year to, at least a year to figure out how to play the game.
Yep, exactly. So that's just the case for a lot of these trench player positions. A lot of times it's year 2 or year 3. And also if McTelvin Najim, if we get as little as we got from him last year, I'll be concerned. But if it's not like blowing us away and incredible, he still has a pathway to develop into a fine player. And he was also the 95th overall pick, a compensatory pick in the 3rd round. That doesn't guarantee a starter. You'd prefer it to be a starter for sure, long term. But if he develops into, let's say, the first guy off the bench as a defensive lineman, that's okay return for what is essentially like an early day 3 pick.
Yeah, he's at the end of his 2023 contract, he's a $1.5 million cap hit. That's 0.75% of a $200 million cap. Okay, but hopefully you don't want him just taking up space though. That also means we say it's bad to be old and expensive. Well, it's also bad to be cheap and non-productive because you're real expendable. So, hopefully he steps it up this year.
Oh, absolutely. And we have a few more guys we want to touch on here before we probably get out of here. We touched on the big 5 that I'm the most comfortable with. The Broncos did draft Marquise Spencer in the 7th round this year from Mississippi State. I would assume he gets a year on the practice squad. Pretty raw. He was, I believe, a 4-star athlete before going to Mississippi State, but he's got some work to do. So I think you probably put him on the back burner, and hopefully the Broncos can protect him and he'll stick around there. But that's one for me. And the other one I want to talk about here is Shamar Stephen. The Broncos went out and actually brought him in from Minnesota. So George Payton has familiarity with him. He's one that we are interested in seeing. And he's one that I think we're talking a lot about Deshaun Williams. I'm more comfortable with Deshaun Williams because I watched him with the Broncos last year more than I've watched the Vikings with Shamar Stephen. But I think he definitely has a chance to come in and push for that position. And he's got one of those things that we're talking about. Unfortunately, like the leverage is not always the best, but 6'5", he's got length, and that's going to matter for that 3 technique, 5 technique position for the Broncos, where they can cover multiple gaps and hopefully impact the run game.
Yeah, you froze up on me a little bit. That might be on my end. I'm connected to a secondary router because, well, long story. Um, so there's nobody on here that pops out to me as like, oh yeah, that's a steal. That guy can play. He was off for this reason or that reason. So I'm gonna leave that one to you.
Yeah, but Shamar Stephen is one that I think could make some moves because the Broncos went out there and paid him. Maybe he's just a backup, but I think he's got a chance to make the team because they identified him and brought him in. It might have been me that froze there. I don't know, guys. Probably it's because I was pulling up a draft profile for that player. Yeah, he was projected as a day 3 or 4 pick. Played for Connecticut. Long player. So we'll see. I'm excited to see him this year. He's one that I will be trying to identify in preseason play. So watch out for Shamar Stevens. And we got Glenn Hauser coming here with the Stars. Thank you very much, Glenn. And excited to join you tonight to talk some football with you as well on your show. Hopefully I'm not freezing again. I see that I have 2 bars on my connection. So what's the rest of the day look like, Scott, before we get on out of here? And I think we'll talk linebackers next Tuesday.
Yeah, gonna get some work done. I still owe you that Malik Willis video, so that is gonna happen today. Gonna catch USA Friendly at 9:30 Eastern time. Gonna watch a little soccer, and then baseball tryouts. Last day of baseball tryouts for 12U for the boy. So that's more stressful than you might think. So this youth sports is just killing me. So I'm looking forward to it's the last day. I'm looking forward to that being done tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, that's going to have to do it for us. We're going to get on out of here. I want to give a shout out to everybody who joined us today and contributed to the show. We got Andrew Morrow, Peter Middleton, Kyle Wielden, Michael Ronquillo, Gary Leeds Palmer, Brian Greenfield, Max Power, and Glenn Hauser. Man, you guys coming in hot, helping us so much with the off season, right? Like it's dead time and sometime, oh man, what are we going to get eyeballs in here? People are going to want to enjoy the show and talk with us. You guys are helping a heck of a lot. Also shout out to everybody joining us in the comment section today. Thank you so much. If you guys are enjoying the show, make sure you follow us on Twitter at Nick Kendell MHH for myself and at Scout Kennedy to follow Scott, of course. And also if you guys are following Scott, you would like Scott, make sure you follow his channel as well. I'm going to post it in the chat here for you guys to follow, but it's youtube.com/C/Scott Kennedy. Hopefully we can get you up to 1,000 here before September. I think that's probably
September 1. I think we should do it September 1. Once July 31st hits and camps start going and all that type of thing for college and NFL, I'm going to start, doing a lot more on that. And again, I like hitting the big picture stuff. So I'll do a lot of NFL draft talk and overviews, and then have guys like you come in as guests to talk about your respective teams.
Well, there we go. That'd be a lot of fun. And I see now that you sent us a piece of a redraft, and you have Jerry Jeudy still going to the Broncos.
That was maybe we hit that one next week. That Luke Easterling, who we worked with at Sports Illustrated when he was there and when I was there, was running the Tampa Bay site, is doing Draft Wire. I think he's one of their lead draft analysts, and he did a redraft, a hindsight draft. Mm-hmm. Denver Bronco took Jerry Jeudy. So, and for me, this goes back to why I believe in local, at least focused content providers, because I get the feeling of the players available, the majority of Broncos fans might take someone else that's still available after Jerry Jeudy. So that's my hunch, but that'll be an interesting topic later.
Yeah, for sure. And Justin Herbert going number 1. Man, it's AFC West is going to be hard, guys. God, please, Drew Lock, do something this year. But guys, that's going to do it for us. Make sure you follow us on Twitter as well at Mile High Huddle. Go to Facebook and follow us, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. If you're joining us on YouTube today, make sure you subscribe, like, and share. And again, thank you to everybody who joined us today. Have a good day, everyone. Oh, Miller707 coming in a little late, saying, what's up, Broncos fam? Way late, but better late than never. Well, you got here in time to get your comment up, so there you go. Here we go. US Dave saying the best MHH program. Man, Dave, that's very nice of you. DBA saying thanks, guys. We also got Moran saying thanks for the show. Appreciate all you guys. I didn't see Greg Smith today to say hello and goodbye. So hope you're doing well, Greg. But we'll see you guys next Tuesday for another episode. Everyone stay safe. Hope you're enjoying your summer. Go Broncos.
1 week closer.